Jesse Waters took over Tucker Carlson's old time slot on Fox News after Tucker was fired last year. After the network rotated a bunch of fill-in hosts, they finally decided to stick with Jesse. And since Tucker was fired, I've spent a grand total of about 2 minutes watching the network, other than when they were hosting debates, where it was the only place that you could watch them. But I did catch wind of a certain segment that Jesse Waters did earlier this week, which made me proud.
So in the 1960s, Americans got a look behind the curtain of Washington. Operation Mockingbird, the CIA's plan to bait journalists with hoaxes disguised as scoops, got exposed.
Do you have any people
Gee, that clip looks familiar, right? It's only been played on my YouTube channel for the last 15 years
who
on a
are
regular basis?
contributing to a major circulation American journal?
We do have people who submit pieces to American journals.
Langley was laundering narratives to the press and into the public's veins. The most trusted names in news were working wittingly or unwittingly as deep state conduits of disinformation. At least 22 American news organizations, from the New York Times to Life magazine to CBS, had journalists on the CIA payroll.
At CBS, we had been contacted by the CIA. As a matter of fact, by the time I became the head of the whole news and public affairs operation in 1954, the ships had been established, and I was told about them and asked if I'd carry on with them.
And the cover-up continues, although the lies are more blatant now.
Bravo, Jesse. I am impressed. I am proud. And not to brag, but just to put things into perspective about how far behind the curve Fox News is. Independent media personalities like myself, Alex Jones, Luke Rudowski, Jason Burmis, Gary Franchi, and others have been reporting on Operation Mockingbird for literally 20 years now. Alex Jones for probably 25 years. And if there's one thing you know about me, I have the receipts. So here's Alex Jones and I talking about it 15 years ago, back in 2009.
And that's my first question for Mark Dice. We're going to play some clips of him calling into radio shows. He does this and really has a big effect with Sean Hannity and Bill O'Reilly and many others. He's also an author.
You know, people wonder why is it that these guys won't talk about these issues, and it all goes back to Operation Mockingbird, which was started back in the 50s. And this is not just me saying this or Alex saying this. There was a congressional hearing back in the 1970s, in the mid-70s, that uncovered that the CIA was paying reporters to plant stories and also gatekeep. And so you wonder why these issues don't make it out.
But I mean, now it's just admitted that the Pentagon alone spending $5 billion on domestic propaganda and buying reporters and planning stories. I mean, that's why it's everywhere. About, do you love America? Then love the military and join now to fight Al Qaeda.
Here's a quote directly from the Church Committee Investigations. This is the report published in 1976. So this isn't me saying this. This isn't Alex Jones saying this. This is directly from a congressional hearing from the published report. And it says, quote, the CIA currently maintains a network of several hundred individuals around the world who provide intelligence for the CIA and at times influence public opinion through the use of covert propaganda. These individuals provide the CIA with direct access to a large number of newspapers, periodicals, scores of press services and news agencies, radio and television stations, commercial book publishers, and foreign media outlets. And back in the 70s, they were paying hundreds of millions of dollars a year.
And now it's tens of thousands. That's why there's CIA recruiting ads everywhere. They're just taking everything over.
Here's a quote from an individual back in the 70s that was involved with Operation Mockingbird, Thomas Braden. He was the head of the International Organizations Division, which is an element within the CIA that basically implemented this operation. And he openly admitted after the hearings, quote, if the CIA director wanted to extend a present, I think he called it, supposed he thought this man could use $50,000, he's working well and doing a good job, he could hand it to him and never have to account to anybody. There was simply no limit to the money he could spend, no limit to the people that he could hire, no limit to the activities it could decide were necessary.
And then today we have the Army going around, for 2 decades we know of, buying off most of the mayors and police chiefs.
Not to mention, there is a subsection in my first book, The Resistance Manifesto, originally published back in 2005 about Operation Mockingbird. This is my book. That was the original cover, and I did write it under the pseudonym John Connor at the time. Then I updated it and released the revised edition in 2008. But first edition released in 2005, 19 years ago. So About time Fox News finally catches up with the guy in his kitchen on a laptop. And back in 2021, Glenn Greenwald was the first person to ever even bring it up on Fox News, urging Tucker Carlson's audience to Google it and look it up and start learning about it.
If you go and Google, and I hope your viewers do, Operation Mockingbird, what you will find is that during the Cold War, these agencies used to plot about how to clandestinely manipulate the news media to disseminate propaganda to the American population. They used to try and do it secretly. They don't even do it secretly anymore. They don't need Operation Mockingbird. They literally put John Brennan, who works for NBC, and James Clapper, who works for CNN, and tons of FBI agents right on the payroll of these news organizations. They now shape the news openly to manipulate and deceive the American population.
That's correct. But what Jesse Waters will never tell his audience is that Fox News fell victim to Operation Mockingbird, or really were willing collaborators, and still are to a certain extent. But during the Bush administration and the War on Terror, there wasn't a bigger propaganda, pro-war, fake news outlet than Fox News, who currently employs the pretty-faced propagandist from the Bush administration, Dana Perino, who was George W. Bush's White House press secretary, who is an admitted big fan of the amazing Hillary Clinton. This is her hosting a Hillary Clinton event just last year.
Of our organization was somebody that you are here to see, the amazing Secretary Hillary Clinton. Here she is.
Look at how excited she is. And Fox News employs her, welcoming what is essentially a mafia boss, who she's calling amazing. Then 2 years ago, in 2022, when comedian Alex Stein was on Tucker Carlson's show, out of character after Tucker noticed his culture jamming at the city council events, then he did his best to try to alert the Fox News viewers about it.
Because what happens is we have what is called the Mockingbird media. They admit the CIA has liaisons in every single form of our entertainment, from the radio, television, news, and film.
Then 2 weeks ago, Tucker interviewed Jacob Chansley, who was known as the QAnon shaman, who also tried to alert Tucker's viewers about the obvious.
And a deep state psyop that ensued afterward. I'm not surprised. That's what these people do. The whole media apparatus, what I call the Mockingbird media, and the government are in lockstep.
And a lot of times fans will put their favorite host or their favorite activist on too high of a pedestal. And it doesn't matter how intelligent or brilliant or brave they are, we all have flaws. And that includes Tucker Carlson. And after he was fired from Fox News, I was DMing through Twitter with somebody who worked on the show, because there were numerous writers and producers that worked on the show that were fans of mine. And I was trying to get the inside scoop about what happened. He didn't know anything other than the obvious, but after DMing back and forth, I just gave my number and I said, hey, DMing is a very inefficient way of communicating. If you want to just pick this up on the phone, that would be better. So we had to talk just about the show and about media in general. And I asked him straight up, I said, why didn't you guys ever cover Operation Mockingbird? And he told me, and I don't think he would lie, he told me that he had never heard of it. And the reason I say that I don't think he was lying to me at all is because he did admit some other things about the network on background, which is similar to off the record. When somebody tells you something off the record, you're not supposed to talk about it at all. But when somebody tells you something on background, you can talk about it, but you just can't source who it was that told you that information. So he did admit that Fox News had banned Tucker from interviewing Alex Jones, but they couldn't stop him, at least not until they fired him, from mentioning him periodically in his monologues. So I don't think that Tucker and anyone on his team actually knew about Operation Mockingbird. Someone else who appears to have just learned about it a few years ago, probably from yours truly, not to brag, but you know, for many years I've been calling out the Conservative Inc. host, the mainstream conservative media, for not talking about it. And to her credit, 2 years ago, Candace Owens did a segment about it.
So yeah, it does sound like they are a bunch of mockingbirds, which is appropriate, of course, because that was the CIA program title. It was called Operation Mockingbird. You are not a conspiracy theorist for knowing the truth, and you are correct if you know about the Mockingbird being something that the CIA has never discontinued.
But sadly, Candace Owens' days at the Daily Wire may be numbered, because not only did Ben Shapiro call on her to quit last year, a few months ago, And there was a gigantic pressure campaign from others in conservative ink media to try to pressure the Daily Wire to fire her after she simply just expressed that she was sad that there were thousands and thousands of innocent Palestinian women and children and other civilians that Israel killed in response to the horrific Hamas attack back in October. But she also just humiliated a rabbi for 43 minutes who came on her show to respond to his accusations, his smears, after he had been repeatedly calling her an anti-Semite. And then when he came on her show to debate her, he was utterly humiliated, which is now leading to more pressure to fire Candace Owens, because if there's one thing you're not allowed to do in conservative media, it's to criticize Israel or anything Israel does in any way, shape, or form. And so now we have articles like this from Mediaite. How long will the Daily Wire stand by Candace Owens? But that's a whole other story. Let's return to the topic at hand, Operation Mockingbird, before we start noticing too much. Last summer, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. brought it up on a podcast on the Lex Friedman podcast, which he is sort of like YouTube's new golden boy of podcasters. He's the brand-friendly podcasting nerd, and it went right over his head. And he didn't even bother asking any follow-up questions about such a fascinating topic.
For most of its life, the CIA was banned from propagandizing Americans. But we learned that they were doing it anyway. So in 1973, during the Church Committee hearings, we learned that the CIA had a program called Operation Mockingbird, where they had at least 400 members, leading members of the United States Press Corps, and the New York Times, the Washington Post, ABC, CBS, NBC, etc., who were secretly working for the agency and steering news coverage to support CIA priorities.
And last year, in one of my in-depth reports about Operation Mockingbird, the in-depth reports are those very serious reports that I used to do. I'm going to start doing them again. I've just been too busy to put them together. They take a long time to put together, but I'm working on some more, so I'll start doing that again. But about once a year for the last 4 years, 5 years, regular viewers would know I would do an in-depth report about the history and the current revelations, current activities of Operation Mockingbird. And so in last year's, titled Why Are No Conservatives Talking About Operation Mockingbird, I included Charlie Kirk and Ben Shapiro and Sean Hannity with clown noses. And every time I call out my fellow peers in the media, they do hear about it. Most of the time, they will not respond. They won't mention it, but they know. And a week and a half later, Charlie Kirk then titled his podcast, Operation Mockingbird, the you-know-what state. Not allowed to say that on YouTube. I think that'll definitely get a video demonetized if you talk about the Eep Day 8 stay. So he did title his podcast, Operation Mockingbird. Of course, no coincidence, because he heard about me calling him out. He saw the tweets. He saw the comments. And he did the right thing. And to his credit, Charlie Kirk is getting much better. He used to be extremely pathetic. He used to be this kind of a libertarian, kind of a leftist, phony conservative. But he is starting to see the error of his ways. And he is doing much better. I mean, I don't think that we should forgive him until he actually apologizes. And even if he ever does, we certainly shouldn't forget that he used his organization, Turning Point USA, to try to normalize welcoming LGBTQ people into the conservative movement, doing his whole culture war tour with Rob Schmidt or Smith or whatever this rainbow person's name is.
So my question is there any point where conservatives should take a moral stance on Christian morality, or should we abandon it altogether? So in other words, what is what is your brand of conservatism doing to actually conserve Christian morality? If we're ceding to the left on transgender, gay rights, gay marriage, we don't want that in conservatism.
So you don't want him in the conservative movement? I just want to be very clear. Let's just be... Rob.
So you don't want me in the movement?
No. Hold on a sec. I want to be very clear. Hold on a sec.
Not to mention he endorsed and advocated gay marriage and same-sex couples adopting children. Do I even need to play this clip again of him sitting down with Dave Rubin, Conservative Inc.'s token gay guy, literally giving him 2 thumbs up, encouraging him and his husband to adopt children?
What I think is the position that needs to be articulated better is I have no problem if, gay marriage, whatever, I think it's cool, you're married, I think it's great, and you should have all the same tax benefits, adopt children, it's great.
No. Right? You didn't think that I was being hyperbolic when I said that he gave 2 thumbs up for gay men adopting children, did you? That's mainstream conservatism today, literally further to the left than the Democrat Party was during the Obama administration. Which is why there's an entire chapter on the cowardly conservatives in my new book, The War on Conservatives, because we're not just opposed by the Marxist Democrats on the left, we're also opposed from rhinos and cowards within our own party. So if you like watching my videos, you're going to really love reading the book. So head on over to Amazon.com or click the link in the description below. And by the way, speaking of Operation Mockingbird, one of my favorite shirts, actually, available from MarkDice.com, is the Operation Mockingbird shirt. So head on over to MarkDice.com or click the link in the description below and check them out.